Welcome to the IGC Gate Podcast. I am Zayd Haji, author, research student, management consultant, and counselor. Most businesses believe they understand their customers. Most professionals believe they understand their audience. Most marketers believe they know why people buy. Yet the uncomfortable reality is that much of what we assume about human decision making is often incomplete, outdated, or simply wrong. People rarely purchase products for the reasons businesses think they do. They rarely make decisions through pure logic. Beneath every purchase, every click, every subscription, every brand preference, and every loyalty decision exists a deeper psychological process that is often invisible to the person making the choice. In today's episode, we explore the fascinating intersection of consumer psychology, behavioral economics, market research, and human behavior. We examine why traditional approaches to understanding customers frequently fail, why asking people what they want often produces misleading answers, and how the most successful organizations uncover what people actually value through observation, insight, and evidence. This conversation is not just for marketers, entrepreneurs, and business leaders. It is equally relevant for students, professionals, researchers, creators, and anyone interested in understanding how human beings make decisions in a world overflowing with information, influence, and competing choices. Because the greatest business advantage is rarely having more information. It is knowing which information truly matters. Let's begin. And today I want to talk about something that quietly controls careers, businesses, relationships, education systems, and even personal growth. Yet most people never notice it. The quality of your life is heavily influenced by the quality of the questions you ask. That sounds simple until you realize that most people spend years searching for answers without ever questioning whether they are solving the right problem. Think about how often people ask themselves questions that already contain limitations. Students ask, how do I get better grades? Professionals ask, how do I get promoted? Business owners ask, how do I get more customers? Individuals ask, how do I become successful? These sound like intelligent questions on the surface, but hidden inside them is a dangerous assumption. The assumption is that the problem has already been correctly identified. What if better grades are not the real issue? What if promotion is not the real objective? What if more customers are not actually the bottleneck? What if success itself has never been properly defined? One of the most expensive mistakes people make is becoming exceptionally skilled at solving the wrong problem. The modern world rewards activity. It rewards movement. It rewards visible effort. Because of this, people become addicted to answers. Answers create the feeling of progress. Questions create uncertainty. Most people would rather feel productive than feel uncertain. That is exactly why they miss what matters. When I observe students struggling academically, I often notice something fascinating. They spend enormous amounts of time searching for study techniques, productivity systems, note-taking frameworks, memory hacks, and examination strategies. Those tools can be useful. However, very few stop and ask a more uncomfortable question. Why am I forgetting what I learned? That question forces a completely different investigation. Maybe the problem is not memory. Maybe the problem is attention. Maybe the problem is sleep. Maybe the problem is anxiety. Maybe the problem is information overload. Maybe the problem is that they never truly understood the concept in the first place. The answer changes depending on the question. This pattern repeats itself throughout life. A professional might spend years asking how to earn more money. They work harder. They take additional certifications. They increase their hours. They pursue side projects, yet income barely changes. Eventually frustration appears. Then one day a different question emerges. What creates value in my industry? Suddenly the entire conversation changes. The focus shifts from effort to leverage. It shifts from hours worked to problem solved. It shifts from activity to impact. The person begins seeing opportunities that were invisible before because they were trapped inside the wrong question. The uncomfortable reality is that most people never reach this stage. They become trapped in what psychologists sometimes call problem framing. The way a problem is framed determines the solutions that become visible. If you frame a problem incorrectly, every solution you generate will also be flawed. Imagine someone standing in front of a locked door. For hours, they search for stronger tools. They look for bigger hammers. They look for better techniques. They become experts at breaking locks. The only issue is that the door was never locked. It simply opened by pulling instead of pushing. Their intelligence was never the issue. Their effort was never the issue. Their understanding of the problem was the issue. Many careers operate exactly like this. Many businesses operate exactly like this. Many lives operate exactly like this. This becomes even more dangerous in an age where information is abundant. A century ago, access to answers was limited. Today, answers are everywhere. You can search almost anything. You can watch tutorials. You can read articles. You can listen to experts. You can ask AI systems. Answers have become cheap. Questions remain valuable. That distinction matters more than most people realize. If answers become infinitely available, then the competitive advantage shifts toward identifying the right questions. The people who thrive in the future will not necessarily be the people who know the most. They will often be the people who investigate better. They will be the people who challenge assumptions earlier. They will be the people who notice what everyone else overlooks. This is why curiosity is frequently misunderstood. Many people think curiosity means gathering more information. Real curiosity is far more disruptive. Real curiosity challenges the structure of the problem itself. It asks whether the problem exists. It asks whether the objective is valid. It asks whether the assumptions are accurate. It asks whether everyone is chasing something that does not deserve to be chased. That type of curiosity makes people uncomfortable because it destabilizes certainty. Humans naturally seek certainty because certainty feels safe. Unfortunately, certainty is often where growth ends. The most transformational moments in life usually begin with a question that creates discomfort. A student asks whether the degree they are pursuing is actually aligned with the future they want. An employee asks whether the promotion they are chasing will genuinely improve their life. An entrepreneur asks whether their business model solves a meaningful problem. A parent asks whether they are preparing their child for the future or preparing them for a world that no longer exists. These questions create tension. Most people avoid them, yet those questions often lead to breakthroughs. One observation I have made repeatedly is that people tend to focus on visible problems while ignoring invisible systems. Visible problems attract attention because they are easy to see. Invisible systems quietly determine outcomes. A student sees poor grades. That is the visible problem. The invisible system might be ineffective learning habits. It might be poor sleep quality. It might be chronic stress. It might be social pressure. It might be digital distraction. The grade is merely the symptom. The system is the cause. Businesses make this mistake constantly. Revenue declines. Leadership focuses on advertising. Marketing budgets increase. Campaigns become more aggressive. Yet revenue continues falling. Months later, they discover that customers were leaving because of poor service experiences. The company was solving a symptom while ignoring the system creating the symptom. This happens because symptoms are loud. Systems are quiet. Symptoms demand attention. Systems require investigation. The same principle applies to personal development. Many people focus on confidence. They want more confidence. They read books about confidence. They watch videos about confidence. They repeat affirmations about confidence. Yet confidence remains elusive. Why? Because confidence is often an outcome rather than a starting point. Competence creates confidence, preparation creates confidence, experience creates confidence, repeated exposure creates confidence. When people focus exclusively on confidence itself, they sometimes miss the systems that generate confidence naturally. The world encourages us to chase outcomes. Very few people teach us how to study causes. That distinction changes everything. Another uncomfortable truth is that many people secretly ask questions designed to protect existing beliefs rather than discover new truths. That sounds harsh, but it happens constantly. Instead of asking, "What am I missing?" people ask, "How can I prove I am right?" Instead of asking, "What evidence contradicts my view?" people ask, "What evidence supports my view?" Instead of investigating reality, they collect validation. This is one of the most dangerous habits in both personal and professional life. Growth requires the willingness to be wrong, not occasionally, regularly. Every significant improvement begins with the recognition that a current belief may be incomplete. That requires intellectual humility. Intellectual humility is becoming increasingly rare because modern environments reward confidence more visibly than reflection. Confident people appear decisive. Reflective people appear uncertain. Yet uncertainty is often where the deepest learning occurs. The strongest thinkers I have encountered are rarely the loudest people in the room. They ask questions that reveal hidden assumptions. They challenge their own conclusions. They remain curious longer than others. Most importantly, they understand that certainty can become a trap. The moment you believe you fully understand a situation is often the moment you stop noticing important information. Life continuously changes. Industries change. Technology changes. Human behavior changes. Questions help us adapt. Answers eventually expire. That is why some people remain relevant for decades while others become obsolete, despite having impressive knowledge. The difference is not intelligence. The difference is adaptability. Adaptability begins with questioning. As we move deeper into this conversation, I want you to think about your own life. What problem are you currently trying to solve? More importantly, what assumptions are hidden inside that problem? Have you accepted a definition that deserves to be challenged? Have you inherited goals that were never truly yours? Have you been solving symptoms instead of systems? Have you been collecting answers without examining the questions that produced them? Those are not comfortable questions. They are not supposed to be. The most valuable questions rarely provide immediate relief. They provide clarity, and clarity often arrives before comfort. The reason many people feel stuck is not because they lack intelligence, resources, or opportunity. Sometimes they feel stuck because they have become trapped inside a question that is too small for the reality they are trying to understand. When the question changes, possibilities change. When possibilities change, decisions change. When decisions change, outcomes eventually follow. That is the power of asking better questions. And in part 2, I want to explore something even deeper. I want to examine why organizations, schools, workplaces, and even entire societies often encourage people to ask safe questions instead of transformational ones, and what happens when you finally break that pattern. Now, I want to take that conversation deeper because there is another uncomfortable reality that most people rarely discuss. Many of the systems around us are designed to reward answers far more than they reward questions. Think about your experience in school. From a very young age, most students are trained to focus on producing correct answers. The educational system often measures success by how accurately someone can repeat information, solve predetermined problems, and demonstrate understanding within predefined boundaries. There is value in that. Foundational knowledge matters. However, something interesting happens when people spend years operating inside systems that reward answers. Eventually, many stop asking questions altogether, not because they lack curiosity, not because they lack intelligence, but because questioning becomes associated with uncertainty, and uncertainty often feels risky. The student who asks too many questions may appear distracted. The employee who challenges assumptions may appear difficult. The manager who questions long established processes may appear disruptive. The entrepreneur who challenges industry norms may appear unrealistic. As a result, many intelligent people unconsciously learn a dangerous lesson. They learn that fitting in is safer than investigating. They learn that certainty is more valuable than curiosity. They learn that agreement is often rewarded more quickly than exploration. The problem is that reality does not care about those social rules. Reality rewards accurate understanding. And accurate understanding often begins by questioning things that everyone else accepts. This is why some of the most important breakthroughs in history did not come from people who had better answers. They came from people who asked different questions. Most people looked at the same reality. A few people looked at it differently. The difference was not information. The difference was perspective. I think this lesson becomes incredibly important in today's world because we are living through one of the largest shifts in human history. Technology is changing industries. Artificial intelligence is changing work. Consumer behavior is changing business. Attention is changing education. Communication is changing relationships. The rules that guided previous generations are being rewritten in real time. Yet many people are still operating with questions designed for a world that no longer exists. A student may ask, what degree guarantees a stable future? That question made sense decades ago. Today, stability itself is becoming difficult to define. Perhaps a better question is, what skills remain valuable regardless of industry changes? An employee may ask, how do I keep my current job secure? Perhaps a better question is, how do I become adaptable enough to create value in multiple environments? A business owner may ask, how do I protect my market share? Perhaps a better question is, what changes in customer behavior could make my entire market irrelevant? Notice how different those questions feel. They force a different level of thinking. They move beyond immediate problems and begin exploring systems. That word, systems, is one of the most important concepts anyone can understand. Most people spend their lives reacting to events. Very few spend time understanding the systems creating those events. If you understand systems, patterns become visible. If you understand patterns, prediction becomes easier. If prediction becomes easier, decision making improves. Consider something many people struggle with today, feeling overwhelmed. The common question is usually, how do I manage my time better? Entire industries have been built around answering that question. Calendars, productivity apps, scheduling systems, planning frameworks, time blocking techniques. Some of those tools are useful. But what if the real problem is not time management? What if the real issue is attention management? What if the issue is energy management? What if the issue is decision fatigue? What if the issue is information overload? What if the issue is that modern digital environments are competing aggressively for every second of your focus? Suddenly the problem looks completely different. The solution changes because the question changed. This pattern appears almost everywhere. Many people believe they have a motivation problem. In reality, they often have a clarity problem. When people clearly understand why something matters, motivation frequently follows. Many people believe they have a discipline problem. Sometimes they actually have an environment problem. Their surroundings make productive behavior unnecessarily difficult. Many people believe they have a confidence problem. Sometimes they simply lack evidence that they can succeed because they have not yet accumulated enough experience. Again and again, what appears to be the problem is often only a visible symptom of a deeper system. This brings me to another observation that I believe is becoming increasingly important. We live in a culture that celebrates speed. Everyone wants faster results, faster growth, faster learning, faster success, faster decisions, faster answers. Speed has become a status symbol, yet many of the most important insights require slowness. You cannot rush understanding. You cannot accelerate wisdom. You cannot shortcut self-awareness. You cannot force meaningful reflection. Some questions require time. Some truths require observation. Some patterns only become visible after long periods of attention. This creates a conflict because modern environments train us to move quickly while deep understanding often requires patience. Many people confuse motion with progress. They assume that because they are busy, they are advancing. They assume that because they are occupied, they are improving. They assume that because they are constantly moving, they are getting closer to their goals. But motion and progress are not the same thing. A person can run in circles for years. Movement alone proves nothing. Direction matters. The quality of your questions often determines the quality of your direction. That is why I believe one of the most valuable habits anyone can develop is the habit of regularly questioning their assumptions. Not occasionally, regularly. Ask yourself difficult questions. What belief am I holding that may no longer be true? What goal am I pursuing simply because others expect me to pursue it? What definition of success am I operating under? Who gave me that definition? Does it still make sense? What evidence would change my mind? What am I avoiding because it threatens my current identity? Those questions are not comfortable. They are not designed to be. Comfort often protects existing beliefs. Growth often requires examining them. One of the most fascinating things about human psychology is that people often sense these truths long before they can articulate them. You may have experienced this yourself. Sometimes something feels wrong long before you understand why. You continue following a path. You continue attending meetings. You continue pursuing goals. You continue maintaining routines. Yet there is a quiet voice in the background saying something does not fit. Many people ignore that voice because it lacks immediate evidence. It lacks certainty. It lacks a detailed explanation. Yet intuition often notices patterns before conscious reasoning catches up. That does not mean intuition is always correct. It means it deserves investigation. The goal is not to blindly trust every feeling. The goal is to become curious about what those feelings may be revealing. Instead of asking, how do I stop feeling this? Ask, what information might this feeling contain? That simple shift transforms discomfort into data, and data, when examined honestly, can become insight. As we approach the end of this episode, I want to leave you with a practical framework. Whenever you encounter a problem, pause before searching for answers. Ask yourself 4 questions. First, what problem am I actually trying to solve? Second, what assumptions am I making about this problem? Third, what if those assumptions are incomplete or incorrect? Fourth, what larger system might be creating this issue? These 4 questions will not solve every challenge. What they will do is improve the quality of your thinking. And improved thinking tends to produce improved decisions. Improved decisions, repeated over time, produce improved outcomes. The transformation is rarely dramatic at first. It often feels subtle, almost invisible. A different question leads to a different observation. A different observation leads to a different choice. A different choice leads to a different direction. Years later, you realize you are living a completely different life because you learn to think differently about problems. That is why this conversation matters. This episode is not really about questions. It is about awareness. It is about seeing what others overlook. It is about recognizing that many of the limitations people experience are not always imposed by reality. Sometimes they are imposed by the questions they never thought to challenge. The most powerful shift you can make is not learning another answer. The most powerful shift you can make is learning how to ask a better question. Because better questions expose hidden assumptions. Better questions reveal invisible systems. Better questions challenge inherited beliefs. Better questions uncover opportunities that have been sitting in front of you all along. And perhaps most importantly, better questions help you understand yourself. Not the version of yourself created by expectations, not the version of yourself shaped by social pressure, but the version capable of seeing reality more clearly. The future belongs to people who can think independently. Independent thinking begins with curiosity. Curiosity begins with questioning. And questioning begins with the willingness to admit that there may be more to the story than what is immediately visible. Thank you for joining me on another episode of the IGC Gate Podcast. If this conversation challenged your thinking, do not rush to move on to the next piece of content. Sit with it, with it, think about it. Identify one question in your life that deserves deeper examination. You may discover that the answer you have been searching for is hidden behind a question you have never asked. Until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, keep thinking independently, and keep building a deeper understanding of the world and yourself. I am Zayd Haji, and this is the IGC Gate Podcast. Thank you for listening.